It looks pretty nice, right? You'd never guess that in a few minutes we're going to be stuck in a really good pickle. This video follows a trip my wife and I went on to Sand Hollow for Matt's off-road games, and then we continued on to Moab to test out some brand new tires. If you're new here, my name's Nathan Mueller. Welcome to Outdoor Auto. The goal of this channel is just to be a resource for people that want to get into off-roading and explore the outdoors.
I was coming down the trail and it got really loud and it sounded like there was a rock under the truck. So I stopped, and lo and behold, the truck was moving a rock.
It's day one. We're going to hit the road at the crack of dawn. That's funny. So I'm a parent like many of you, so that's definitely not what happened. Instead, we did this normal school run in the morning. We got the 2-year-old over to grandma's, battled traffic the whole time, made it back to our house, and started packing. I think we made it on the road around noon. You know what? Actually, this isn't very interesting. I'm just going to jump to the good stuff. On the way to Sand Hollow, a little bit of snow somehow turned into a full-blown whiteout winter storm warning.
Well, this just got insane. We just drove ourselves straight into a blizzard. Hopefully we can get out of this pretty soon. Welcome to Utah.
If you've never been to Sand Hollow State Park, that's in Hurricane, Utah, you really need to make it a point to get there. It's an amazing mix of sand and rock and all skill levels. It has basic trails for overlanders, and then it has trails and on BLM land where you can even camp in some of the places. And then it has trails all the way up to like the hard trails of like buggy trails and true rock crawling trails. So it's an incredible place to explore. It is a labyrinth of trails. So if you've never been there before, it can be a little intimidating trying to find all the trails and stay on your trail that you did pick. In my case, with my wife, we took the Tundra and the rock crawler. So we wanted to keep the Tundra on a more medium, like 5 or 6 rated trail. And then we were trying to do like a 7 and 8 rated challenges with the Land Cruiser. The way we use Onyx, it works great because they have every single trail there on the map. So we just keep the Tundra on the easier trail, and then we'd weave in and out with the Land Cruiser and try some of the harder stuff. That was fun. That actually worked really well. That was nice to see because I've been there in the past, and trying to stay on some of those rock trails can be really difficult. So Onyx works really good for that. Onyx has reached out and worked with a lot of YouTubers, and it's awesome because they give us a coupon code. So if you actually want to try out Onyx, you can use our coupon code and save 20% off. I'll put the link below. But yeah, if you're going to go to Sand Hollow and you want to navigate the labyrinth of trails that they have, which are incredible, I highly recommend doing it. Make sure you have some way to track that stuff. It's really easy to get lost in the back, 1,000 acres of that place and get stuck in some sand holes and things like that. We also went to Sand Hollow for the main purpose of checking out the Matt's off-road recovery games, or the off-road games, I guess they called it. Because our buddy Nate from Dirt Lifestyle, he was competing in it with one of his buggies, or his Samurai, his rock crawler. So that was super fun. It was a great event. Tons of people showed up. The weather did not cooperate at all. It was super windy.
Is it windy?
Yeah, you were just getting sandblasted constantly from the wind the first day. But it didn't really matter. Everybody had a good attitude, was putting on goggles or sunglasses, and went out anyways, watched the races, or watched the competitions. You just get to hang out with a bunch of people that are into the same kind of stuff that you're into, having a good time. And I really enjoyed it. It was cool to see everybody out, lots and lots of kids there, just lots of families having fun. So it was a really good time. These were some of the highlights from the off-road games. A lot of stuff happened, but it was pretty interesting. After a couple days of the off-road games, my wife and I decided to say goodbye to Nate, and we decided to go run some trails on our own. Now this is when things got really interesting.
So we're gonna go do some medium, some very, very low medium rock crawling with the Tundra, and see how it does.
Yeah, I'm good with low medium.
Low medium.
It sounds like my style.
Okay, so Mrs. Outdoor Auto was doing pretty good to this point. We had taken a break in the middle of the day and pulled over at this spot. My car was actually blocking the view of this little downhill rock ramp here on the left. When we hopped back in our vehicles, my car can turn sharper than hers, and it's not nearly as wide. So I just peeled off and went right down the rock ramp. She saw me go, so she assumed that it was safe as well. She doesn't have a spotter. This whole video right here is just a camera that had been stuck on the back of my vehicle as I was driving away. I didn't really think to spot her because it really wasn't a hard ramp. But what happens with the Tundra is it has such a huge nose on it that you can't actually see what's directly in front of you, especially if it drops off. And it can't turn as sharp. So when she turned to turn into this, she realized she was on the very edge of the trail, and she just figured she'd cut back into it.
I was coming down the trail and it got really loud and it sounded like there was a rock under the truck. So I stopped, and lo and behold, the truck was moving a rock.
What we have here is there was a rock pile here of big boulders, and as she went over it with the front wheel, it actually knocked this one loose. And it's sitting on the cross member. If it goes too much farther back, it'll be into the gas tank, but it's not really going to go forward either. So it's interesting. I think we're going to have to stack some rocks. Currently, this tire is actually, see that tire is off the ground, like very off the ground, a couple inches off the ground. So, fun times, figured out. I think what we're gonna do.
Okay, so we find ourselves in a little bit of a precarious recovery situation. Couple things to know about this. When she pulled forward, she went far enough forward that the control arms on the front suspension cleared the rock and dropped down. And they effectively created a lock, locking that rock in place where you couldn't go backwards and you definitely couldn't go forward because that rock would just tumble straight into the fuel tank. And the only thing that was keeping it from doing damage right now was just the fact that it was sitting on the cross member. There's a lot of recoveries that I've seen lately, and there's a lot of new overlanders, and they're filming like, hey, I'm filming my first ever recovery that I've ever done. And one thing that you're gonna notice on a lot of videos, recovery videos, even ones where they're trying to teach people stuff, is everybody is too hyper. They're all acting like they're in a hurry. When they're talking to the camera, they're like, oh, it's the first recovery. Everybody's going crazy. So one thing I want to point out, anytime a recovery happens, everybody involved, their first job is you have to turn a mob of people into a team. You got to get everyone to slow down, calm down, stop hurrying. There's certain things you want to do in a hurry. If you roll your vehicle, you want to shut it off really fast. But after that, pause and start figuring out the best way to do things. When I start playing this again, you're gonna see that we kind of take it really slow.
We need to get something like this. Yeah, that one's not tall enough.
But it can ramp you up. It's just brakes.
We're gonna go backwards, but not for very far. Backwards enough to get off of that, to let it fall, and then we're going to go from there.
Couple other points on recoveries. You need to decide who's the cook in the kitchen. I don't care if a recovery is involving 2 people or 20 people. You should pick somebody that has a lot of recovery experience, and you should make everything go through them. That doesn't mean their ideas win. The best idea should always win. But it means anybody with ideas should be channeling it through one person, and one person should be calling out the commands, the spotting, and the next thing. I've seen a lot of recoveries where 2 or 3 people are saying things that aren't agreeing with each other, and then that's when winch lines can snap and cut people up, and all kinds of bad things can happen. So you need to figure out who's in charge and who's the project manager for that specific rescue. That's very important.
I want you to try to get the wheel on top of that. You can't give it a lot of gas, so be a low one. You want to go as slow as possible. Okay, hold on. We get the tire on top of this to release the pressure on that. Let's go ahead and go. Oh, it's working. There we go. We dropped it. Stay there. Actually, go a little bit more. Perfect.
Don't be afraid to assess the problem, come up with a plan, and then halfway through, slow down, pause everything again, and assess again. Because on recoveries, the load of the vehicle and the weight involved with rocks, like in this case, things can shift, and sometimes your plan needs to change. So just don't be afraid to pause the whole entire thing, reassess, and make a new plan. We are not in a race. That's the biggest thing to remember with recoveries is you're generally not in a race unless you're like stuck in the ocean and the tide's coming in.
I want to see if we can get this out of here. We've got all the brakes on, ready? Yeah. We'll throw a rock under this front tire. This is a big rock. This is a problem. Just make sure you're standing on the brake.
Make sure that you state the plan verbally so everybody else is on the same page. Don't just like take all this time to have a plan and then nobody else around you knows what's going to happen as the plan plays out.
Yeah, you're going to have to hop out. I'm going to have to throw a slinger on it, and we're both just going to pull as hard as we can.
I really enjoyed this recovery. And a lot of people are like, well, it was just a recovery with you and your wife. I'm sure, of course it went well. And I would pause you there because I see a lot of husband and wives in stressful situations that don't exactly go well. And the fact that we were able to both just kind of calm down, settle into the problem, and treat it like a puzzle. Like, okay, we got ourselves into a problem. This is a cool puzzle. How are we going to get out of it? That's the way to think about off-roading. If you're scared of breaking anything in off-roading, or having to do recoveries, you really shouldn't off-road. You will eventually have to do recoveries in off-road. Everybody will break something, everybody will get stuck. So that's part of the fun. It's part of the adventure is solving it. So when it happens, you shouldn't be freaking out and out of control, and you also shouldn't be angry. Like, treat it like part of the adventure, work through it. It's a ton of fun. We had a lot of fun on this one. I'll show you what we did really quick to get out of that, and then we can move on with the rest of the trip.
Okay. I mean, just roll you forward more. Start to straighten out a little bit. Okay, wait, slowly. This rock's going to behave very weirdly when you hit the end of it. It's likely going to flip up into the bumper. So just, I'm going to give you a step down. Straight and slow.
Start turning towards me. Okay, you good? You good? Go.
After finishing off a long day of off-roading in Sand Hollow, we actually had big plans for the next day to explore Zion National Park. I'd actually never been there before. My wife was smart enough to apply for the permit to hike Angel's Landing. They have a lottery that you can apply for like a day or two in advance. And we were lucky enough to pull one of those permits. So we actually went ahead and climbed to the top of Angel's Landing. That was really impressive, definitely worth doing. It is a pretty steep climb and pretty fascinating, but man, what a view up there. After that, we actually had to head over to Moab because we're on our way to Moab for the Falken AT4W launch event for their brand new tire. I was really excited about this because it kind of presented one of the first times where I was actually going to be able to sit down and talk to the actual tire designers and understand why they do certain things in a lot of detail. So that was a fantastic event. Definitely learned a lot there. We actually took out a Jeep for one of the first times in my life. Falken had rented a whole bunch of Jeeps and had them set up with their tires, and we went and ran Poison Spider. So that was a great time, despite the fact that I was driving a Jeep.
All right, well, everybody take notice. Nathan is in a Jeep.
Change of Jeeps when you catch up.
Radio.
Let's get you up in front because the next two are really big.
You heard him. The next two problems are really big. So I'm down at this Falken event, and they have a bunch of Jeeps set up with the Falken AT4Ws and then also their RT trails. And they stuck us all in pretty much in our own Jeep Wrangler. Was not optional for me to take my own rig. So far we're doing Poison Spider. It's going good. All the rigs are on 37s and pretty close to stock, about 37s with a 2-inch lift. So it's kind of fun. I would call these rig setups more of almost like a rock lander setup than like a true rock crawling setup. But as you guys know, these Jeep Rubicons are very capable, and so far, no problems.
Yeah, and then that night we actually ended up camping out kind of in the middle of BLM land in Moab. If you know the area, you can pretty much almost always find cool places to camp. We actually got a pin from Will from Venture to Roam. I asked him where a good spot was, and it actually turned out to be an amazing spot. Awesome sunrise that morning. And right before we left to go out of town, we did catch Arches National Park too, because I'd never actually had the time to hike out to Delicate Arch. It's not even that long of a hike. There's just some of these things that I feel like are worth seeing. Like the older we get, more and more often you need permits because they're getting more and more crowded. Some of these things are delicate, like Delicate Arch, and aren't going to be around forever. They're going to fall down. So it was exciting to go check that out. All in all, this was an amazing trip. One thing about overlanding and off-road trips is sometimes all the driving that you have to do can seem overwhelming, but we managed to cover a ton of miles, do a big loop through Utah. I don't regret it at all. It's a beautiful place. We saw a lot of beautiful things, and sometimes you just got to get out there and explore. And sometimes you even got to be brave and go to the popular places that are full of tourists. They're full of tourists for a reason. Some of those things are worth seeing before we're not able to see them again. It was a fantastic trip. Hopefully you guys can tag along for one of the future trips. Thanks for watching the channel. This is Nathan from Outdoor Auto. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next one.
Ding, 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 ding.
We went all the way up there.
Up there, just right there. JRT.
It wasn't hard at all. I'm breathing hard because I'm excited. It's not because I'm tired. That's a lie.